May 16, 1943, 9:39 p.m. RAF Scampton, Lincolnshire, England. The first Lancaster bomber begins its takeoff roll. Below its fuselage hangs something that looks like it came from a child's imagination, a 9,000-pound cylindrical object spinning slowly on a custom-built cradle. The pilot calls it a pregnant duck. It looks ridiculous. It looks impossible. It looks like it will never get airborne. But by midnight, 19 of these bombers will be crossing the North Sea toward Germany, and by dawn, they will have executed the most audacious precision bombing raid of World War II. Their target: the great dams of the Ruhr Valley, the industrial heart of Nazi Germany. Their weapon: a bouncing bomb that was designed by a man experimenting with marbles in his backyard. Their cost: 53 men killed, 8 aircraft destroyed, and the lives of more than 600 civilians. This is the story of Operation Chastise, the Dambusters raid. The night when 19 men flying impossible aircraft with untested weapons proved that the impossible could be accomplished with precision, courage, and the willingness to accept that not all of them would come home. February 1942. Wallace's back garden, Weybridge, England. Barnes Wallace was not a soldier. He was an aeronautical engineer, brilliant, obsessive, prone to wild ideas that made his superiors deeply uncomfortable. In early 1942, he was thinking about how to destroy the dams of Germany's Ruhr Valley. The problem was straightforward. Dams are built to withstand external pressure. Bombs dropped from above bounce off them. Bombs dropped from the side detonate before they reach the dam wall. To destroy a dam, you need a bomb that can somehow reach the base of the dam wall underwater and detonate at exactly the right depth. No one had ever successfully done it. Wallace began experimenting in the most unlikely laboratory imaginable: his back garden, with a water tub and a collection of marbles. He bounced marbles across the surface of the water. He observed how they skipped. He watched the trajectory. He tested angle of impact. He experimented with different velocities. His children watched their father throwing marbles into a bathtub, convinced he'd lost his mind. But Wallace was onto something. If a marble could skip across water, why couldn't a bomb? He took the concept to his engineers. He calculated the precise physics. A bomb, spinning backwards, dropped from a specific height at a specific speed, could theoretically bounce across the surface of water and reach the dam wall underwater. The residual spin would drive it down the face of the dam. A hydrostatic fuse would detonate it at exactly 30 feet below the surface. The theory was sound. The problem was that no bomb had ever been built with these specifications, and no aircraft existed that could fly low enough and slow enough and level enough to deliver it. The RAF rejected the idea as fantasy. The Admiralty rejected it as impractical. But Wallace kept pushing. In July 1942, a test version of the bomb, codenamed Upkeep, was tested against a small dam in Wales. It worked perfectly. Suddenly, the fantasy had proof. And suddenly, the RAF was interested. March 1943. RAF Scampton, Lincolnshire. Bomber Command decided to form an entirely new squadron dedicated to this one mission. It was to be called 617 Squadron, and to command it, they chose a 24-year-old named Guy Gibson. Gibson was already a legend in the RAF. At 24, he'd flown more than 170 combat sorties. He'd been shot down. He'd bailed out over enemy territory. He'd survived. He was fearless in a way that terrified his superiors. Not reckless, but absolutely committed to the mission regardless of personal cost. Squadron's first challenge was not the enemy. It was physics. The Lancaster bomber, the aircraft selected for the mission, was never designed to fly at 60 feet altitude, 232 miles per hour, absolutely level, at night. The pilots complained they couldn't judge height over water. There was no reference point, no depth perception, just darkness and water, and the terrifying possibility of flying straight into the sea at 2:30 MFS. They trained for weeks, flying over English lakes, dropping practice bombs on mock targets, perfecting a technique that had never been attempted before. Many pilots crashed. Many aircraft were destroyed. But slowly, imperceptibly, 6117 Squadron became something the world had never seen before. A precision bombing unit. They practiced at Reculver Bay. They practiced over the Derwent Reservoir. They practiced until the impossible became routine. Until flying 60 feet above water at night, carrying a 9,000-pound bomb spinning beneath the fuselage, became second nature. By May 1943, they were ready. Or as ready as any unit could be for something that had never been done before. May 15, 1943, 6 p.m. RAF Scampton briefing room. Gibson stood before his men and said words that most of them would remember for the rest of their lives. "We are going to attack the great dams of Germany." Most of them had no idea. They'd been training for weeks not knowing the target. Now they knew, and they understood immediately what it meant. This was the real thing. This was the mission. And many of them understood, in that silent moment, that they would not be coming home. At 7:30 p.m., the crews were served 2 eggs and bacon, a meal they only received before the most dangerous missions. The canteen staff had noticed the pattern. 1 meal, 2 eggs, death coming. Some of the men wrote letters. Some gave instructions for their affairs to be put in order. Some simply sat in silence, smoking cigarettes, knowing that in a few hours they would either be heroes or dead. At 9:28 p.m., Gibson climbed into his Lancaster, call sign AJG. The first wave of bombers began their takeoff roll. May 16-17, 1943, 10:30 p.m., over the North Sea. 19 Lancasters climbed into the night sky. 133 men, flying in 3 waves. Radio silence. The only sounds: the roar of 4 Rolls-Royce Merlin engines per aircraft, the crackle of static on the radio, the breathing of men who understood they were about to attempt the impossible. They flew low, so low that the wingtips seemed to touch the water. If they climbed too high, German radar would detect them. If they descended too low, they would crash into the sea. Every pilot had to maintain absolute focus on an altimeter that might lie, on a radio altimeter that might fail, on pure instinct. The North Sea gave way to the Dutch coast. Flak began erupting from anti-aircraft positions. 1 Lancaster was hit and exploded in mid-air. Its crew of 7 men was gone, just like that. 19 bombers became a team. They pressed on, flying deeper into German territory, toward the Ruhr Valley, toward 3 dams that had no idea American aircraft were coming. May 17, 1943, 12:28 a.m., the Murney Dam. The first 3 Lancasters reached the Murney Dam, the largest, the most heavily defended, the most critical. The dam was visible in the starlight, a massive curved structure holding 104 million cubic meters of water. Below it lay the industrial heart of Germany. Circling the dam were anti-aircraft guns, German gunners who had been expecting this attack for weeks. Torpedo nets in the water designed to stop underwater bombs, searchlights sweeping the sky. Gibson came in first, low level, at exactly 232 miles per hour. His bombardier called out adjustments. Gibson made tiny corrections to keep the aircraft absolutely stable. Every adjustment threatened to throw off the spin rate of the bomb. Every second over the target brought more flak. "Bomb away!" the bombardier called. The 9,000-pound upkeep dropped toward the water. It hit the surface. It bounced. It skipped across the reservoir like a stone thrown by a giant hand. 3 bounces, losing altitude with each one. Then it hit the dam wall. It sank. It disappeared below the surface. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the dam exploded. An enormous plume of water erupted from the reservoir. The force of the explosion was so massive that it threw Gibson's Lancaster upward, damaged the fuselage, soaked the tail gunner, and nearly crashed the aircraft. But Gibson recovered. The Lancaster climbed away from the inferno. Gibson circled back to watch. The dam was intact. The bomb had detonated, but the structure held. "Left wing attack!" Gibson called to his wingman. "Come in and try again." Flight Lieutenant H.B. Martin, flying AJP, came in next. Low level, his bomb bay open, his bombardier ready. Another bounce, another detonation, another explosion that lit up the night sky. Still the dam held. Then Gibson called forward his third pilot, Flying Officer Joe Young, piloting AJA. One more chance, one more bomb. Young came in exactly as planned. Low level. His bomb dropped. It bounced. It skipped. It hit the wall. This time, it was enough. The dam breached. A section roughly 250 feet wide and 290 feet deep simply collapsed. And behind it, 330 million tons of water began pouring into the valley below. A torrent of water, 33 feet high, traveling at 15 miles per hour, swept down the Murney Valley. It destroyed everything in its path. Factories, bridges, roads, railway lines. The floodwater spread for 50 miles, destroying bridges and infrastructure as it went. German steel production in the Ruhr, which had stood at 1 million tons per month before the raid, would drop to a quarter of that within weeks. Gibson's voice came over the radio. "Nigger, nigger." His call sign was based on the name of his black Labrador, the squadron mascot, which had been struck by a car the night before the raid. Gibson had loved that dog. His call sign was a tribute to it. But there was no time to celebrate. 2 more dams remained. The Eder Dam lay to the southeast, bigger than the Myrna, even more heavily defended, even more critical. By the time the second wave of Lancasters reached the Eder, the Germans were awake. Anti-aircraft fire erupted. Searchlights swept the sky. 2 more Lancasters were shot down, their crews lost. But the Eder was attacked relentlessly. Wave after wave, bomb after bomb. The dam was struck repeatedly, and finally, it too collapsed. Another 202 million cubic meters of water unleashed. The Sorp Dam, the third primary target, proved more resilient. It was a different type of dam, built on different principles. The bombs hit it, but it didn't breach. It was damaged, it would need repairs, but it survived. By 3 a.m., the raid was complete. 19 Lancasters had set out. 8 returned. 11 were shot down. 73 crew members were dead. Another 3 were captured and would spend the rest of the war in POW camps, unaware until after the war that they'd been listed as dead. The remaining 8 Lancasters limped back toward England, flying back across the North Sea in the darkness, nursing damaged engines, praying that fuel would last, knowing that friends were not coming home. Wing Commander Gibson landed his Lancaster at RAF Scampton at 4:35 a.m. He was awarded the Victoria Cross for his actions that night. But Gibson never talked about being a hero. He talked about the cost. One pilot never made it back to England. Flying Officer Cyril Anderson's Lancaster ran out of fuel over the ocean. The entire crew ditched in the sea. The dinghy held 6 of 7 men. 1 crew member drowned clinging to the side of the raft before rescue finally came. 53 men killed. 11 aircraft destroyed. 8 families receiving letters that began with, "We regret to inform you." And the impact on German industry. Massive factories were back online within weeks. An estimated 30,000 workers were conscripted to repair the damage. The dams were rebuilt. The Ruhr Valley resumed production. The physical destruction, measured in industrial capacity, was temporary, but the psychological impact was permanent. Germany understood that their most critical infrastructure was vulnerable, that British bombers could reach anywhere, that no target was truly safe. And Britain understood that precision mattered, that specialized training mattered, that a small number of highly trained crews could accomplish what mass bombing could not. Barnes-Wallis, the engineer who had bounced marbles in his backyard, was knighted in 1968 for his contributions to the war effort. But he was haunted by the raid. He had been awarded $10,000 for his work during the war. In 1951, he donated all of it to a fund to help with the education of children whose fathers had died in RAF operations. Guy Gibson, who had led the raid at age 25 and become a national hero, was killed on September 19, 1944, when his Mosquito fighter bomber crashed while returning from a bombing mission over Germany. He was 26 years old. The last surviving member of 6117 Squadron, Johnny Johnson, didn't die until 2022. For nearly 80 years, he carried the memories of that night, the roar of the Merlin engines, the terror of flying 60 feet above water in darkness, the friends who didn't come home, the impossible mission that succeeded at terrible cost. Operation Chastise lasted less than 4 hours. It cost 73 lives. It destroyed infrastructure that was replaced within months. But it did something else, something more important than the immediate tactical victory. It proved that with precision, with training, with absolute commitment to the mission, you could accomplish things that seemed impossible. You could destroy targets that seemed impregnable. You could change the course of war not with numbers but with excellence. 19 aircraft, 19 crews, one impossible dream. 53 men paid the ultimate price to make that dream real for a single night. If you watch this until the end, subscribe. Because this won't be the last time a few exceptional people changed history with precision, courage, and the willingness to risk everything.